Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman had everything that I have come to expect from the author of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. It was just as chaotic and just as funny, and it had some of this same writing style that I am used to from this author, but it was also a lot deeper and a lot more thought-provoking than I ever expected for something with Bounce House in the title. There was a lot going on in this book, and it was just such a fantastic story, and I can't wait to share my thoughts with you guys on it. So let's get into it. Just as a heads up, I will try to keep this review as spoiler-free as possible for those of you who haven't had a chance to read it, but as I always do in my reviews, if there are spoilers, I will put those spoiler tags up wherever necessary just to help you guys out with those. Operation Bounce House follows the story of Oliver Lewis and his sister Lulu and their friends, who are descendants of the first colonists from Earth to a planet called New Sonora. And they have been living as farmers on this planet, basically, with robot drones and like an AI system to help them with like a bunch of this technology to help them farm and live, and like living these simple lives and growing up with like Earth culture and Earth television and things like that. And they're eagerly awaiting the arrival of the transfer gate being open to be able to travel between Earth and New Sonora for the very first time in their lives. But when that eventually happens, what they find out is a company called Apex Corporation has created a game called Operation Bounce House, where they have allowed gamers to pay for the privilege to pilot these war machines virtually to come and essentially try to kill the population of New Sonora, because they have been told that the people who live on New Sonora are terrorists. So Oliver and his friends end up having to fight for their lives to defend their home for the 5 days that this game is in effect. The premise of this book is something that I don't think I have ever seen before. It's not a story that I have come across in anything that I have read before, but it is very, very on brand for Matt Dinniman, especially if you have read any of his Dungeon Crawler Carl books. And if you have missed any of my reviews of the Dungeon Crawler Carl books, you can catch those here. I'll also put a link to those in the description as well if you guys want to catch up on those. But if you are at all familiar with Dungeon Crawler Carl and Matt Dinniman, then you know that he is just very creative and very good at coming up with off-the-wall scenarios for his books. And even though this is a very different genre from Dungeon Crawler Carl, it still has the same writing style, it still has his humor, it still has all of the elements that if you are familiar with Dungeon Crawler Carl and Matt Dinniman, you will see a lot of similarities in this book to that series as well, even though this book is more fantasy, dystopian, sci-fi genres versus Dungeon Crawler Carl is that lit RPG video game focused genre. But it's still very Matt Dinniman when you read it, and it's still very, very enjoyable, especially if you are already familiar with Dungeon Crawler Carl. The characters in this book were very, very entertaining. You have Oliver, you have Lulu, you have Rosita, you have a lot of different characters, a very diverse cast of characters in this book who just have their own personalities and their own ways of doing things. And it was just great to see this tight-knit community kind of come together to defend where they live once they figure out that they are under attack. And it was interesting because this is basically a community of peaceful farmers who have had to learn to fight, and there's a lot that they don't know that they're having to learn about as they go to be able to fight these gamers piloting these machines and everything else. And it was just really, really enjoyable to read along with these characters and kind of follow along with them. And you get to where you're like, you get invested with these characters and you start rooting for them. And it was just, again, it was very, very in line with, if you're familiar with Matt Dinniman at all and how he writes his characters, it was very, very reminiscent of his writing style and how he does characters. And it was very, very enjoyable. This was also my first time listening to a Matt Dinniman book versus just reading it. When I read the Dungeon Crawler Carl books, I'm reading them in ebook format. This is the first time I've listened to an audiobook of Matt Dinniman's, which so far has been an experience. I've heard the Dungeon Crawler Carl books are a performance in their own right. I just haven't had a chance to listen to them, but this one was very much similar in that regard. And so if you have a chance to listen to the audio of this one, I would definitely recommend it. It was very entertaining. It's very easy to just get caught up in the story when you're listening to it versus just sitting and reading. And I did really enjoy that. One of the things that has stuck with me since I read this book, even after I've finished it, is how deep and how thoughtful and thought-provoking this book managed to be after I finished it, which I was not expecting. And you don't really expect it from something called Operation Bounce House, right? You expect it's going to be a lighthearted sort of dystopian science fiction story on its face. And you if you don't want to think any deeper than that, you can absolutely just read it at face value. But it is kind of in your face that one of the themes of this story is how easy it is to other a set of people, right? And that is what happens to this group of people on New Sonora. Is the company on Earth, that Apex Corporation that creates Operation Bounce House. They were hired to enact an eviction action on the planet. And rather than building their own AI systems to eradicate the population and just do it that way, they decided to make it into a profit, turn it into a game, get gamers to do their dirty work for them. So there was lots of propaganda. There was lots of let's turn it into a money-making situation. And a lot of the propaganda was, these people are terrorists. These people you have never met on a different planet are terrorists. There was lots of protect the galaxy, protect Earth, protect everyone else by stepping up and participating in Operation Bounce House for 5 days and getting rid of these terrorists. And it was really, really interesting the way Matt Dinniman was able to weave this into what was just supposed to be a fictional sci-fi story about how easy it is to other a complete population of people. And it really just makes you think when you're not expecting to. And I really appreciated that. And it's not the first time I've experienced him doing that. He does this in Dungeon Crawler Carl quite often. It's a theme that he uses in that series as well. So I am familiar with that, but I also wasn't really expecting it from something with Bounce House in the title, right? I expected it to be, it was not expected for me until, the further you get into the story and the more you learn about the society and the characters and whatnot. And that was just really interesting for me. It's always nice when it's more, the book is more than just a surface level book and there's more substance to it. And the theme has meaning. And that was really, really interesting for me. One of the characters that I especially enjoyed was Roger, who is an AI robot that has basically been on New Sonora from the beginning. He arrived with the original colonists, who were the grandparents of the main characters in this story. So Oliver and his friends have basically grown up with Roger, and Roger is basically family, and he has, learned alongside with them and kind of considers them family and is helping them defend the planet. And there's a lot that happens with him by the end of the book that I am not going to spoil, because it is a big part of the book by the end. But he does become a really favorite character of mine, just because he's, there's a lot of humor involved with him. He's very funny. He's smart. He is very human, which is interesting to say about a robot, about an AI, but I think that is also part of what you're supposed to get out of the story as well. That is kind of how the story is supposed to progress and make you feel on the subject, is that he's more than just a robot, right? Especially when compared to the robots who have come from Earth to fight the New Sonoran people, right? Like he's a good comparison to the robots that are invading. He's the good robot versus the others, even though he's much more human than what's being sent to attack everybody. And it was just really interesting. He has his own personality, just like all the other characters, and you get invested in what happens to him. And it was just, again, really added to the reading experience. And I'm a really huge fan of Matt Dinniman and his writing style and the way he writes characters and weaves them into the story. And every character has meaning, and every character is there for a purpose. And I really do enjoy that. Like, no character is just there to take up space. Every character is there and has lines for a reason. And I really, really did enjoy that. And Roger was a big part of that in this book for me. Overall, I would give Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoy Matt Dinniman's Dungeon Crawler Carl series, so I absolutely expected to enjoy Operation Bounce House, and I was not disappointed. It had the same sort of writing style, humor, and just chaotic storyline that I have come to expect from Matt Dinniman, but it also had the added bonus of just having a lot more thought-provoking themes and some deeper thinking involved that I was not expecting from this book, that I really did enjoy and really did add to the reading experience. The characters were just very, very relatable and believable and easy to get invested in for me, and again, added to my reading experience and my enjoyment of the book. If you are a fan of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series and you haven't picked this book up yet, you should definitely check it out. If you haven't read a Matt Dinniman book yet and aren't ready to commit to a 8-book and counting long series, then this might be a good introduction to Matt Dinniman, since it is a standalone novel, so maybe give it a try. And that is all that I have for this week's review. If you have read this book and you have thoughts on it, or if you're interested in reading it, please feel free to share those in the comments. I'm always eager to hear what you guys have to say about the books that I'm reading, whether you've read them, whether you're interested in them, what you have thoughts on. So definitely feel free to share those. As far as the rest of this week's video, I have a book to share with you guys as what I've finished this week. I finished First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I have mentioned this one in a previous video a while back, so if it sounds familiar, that would be why. This is a story of jaded radio host Aiden, who hosts a romance hotline in Baltimore called Heartstrings, who ends up having to help hopeless romantic Lucy find her one true love. And it is book 1 in this author's Heartstrings series, where each book is based off of a 90s rom-com movie by Nora Ephron. So this one is inspired by the movie Sleepless in Seattle that stars Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. It is such a cute story. And if you have the opportunity to listen to it, I would definitely recommend listening to the audiobook because it, again, was much more enjoyable than I think just reading it would have been. The narrators did such a really good job of upping that reading experience for me. It was very cute. It was very, very heartwarming. And I have not watched Sleepless in Seattle since I was a kid, but I am a huge fan of those rom-coms. So it was really nice to read something that was inspired by that and kind of see the parallels, even though it's been a while since I've seen that movie. So if you are a fan of those 90s rom-coms like that, definitely pick up this book. I know book 2, I'm currently on hold for book 2 in this series, which is supposed to be inspired by When Harry Met Sally, which is a movie starring Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. So I am excited for that one whenever it decides to become available for me on Libby. So I will definitely have to keep you guys tuned in for that one. For those of you interested in finding out what's next on the channel, be sure to be on the lookout for my review of The Eye of the Bedlam Bride by Matt Dinniman. This is book 6 in this author's Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and it follows Carl, Donut, and the rest of the crawlers as they venture down onto the 8th floor of the dungeon, having completely skipped the 7th floor entirely. And this book might be the best one of the series that I have encountered so far. It is even more chaotic, more wild, and just so much more amazing than the previous books. And I know I feel like I say that about every single one of these books in the series that I come across, but this one just has so much character depth and so much going on that it really just grabs you, and it has that same cliffhanger ending that he ends all of the books on that makes you want to grab the next one immediately. As always with these books, there will be spoilers in this review. This far into a series like this, it is just unavoidable. But the way I always do it, I will always put spoiler tags wherever I can to help you guys out with those. And again, I will have I do have a link to my previous reviews of the other books in this series if you want to catch up on those, if you haven't read this series, or if you just need a refresher just before you get to this one. But that is all that I have for you guys this week. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more like it, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time, and happy reading!